There is an all chat, which you can kind of find if you're familiar with Zoom at the bottom of the bar. And there is a function for you guys to pose in your questions as well. We want the session to be interactive. There'll obviously be a lot of interplay between myself and the panelists, as you see, but we want you to chime in as well. If there is anything you want to contribute, feel free to throw it in all chat, which we will be moderating, and feel free to put your questions and answers forward as well, which we will be monitoring as well. We request that you keep it civil, but I mean, everyone here is a professional. I don't think that needs to be stressed too much. With that, we are going to begin with a bunch of introductions. I have a really good panel. I'm really excited to be talking to them. And if I could ask Kane to kind of introduce himself to our audience today.
Sure. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Kane. I work for EZPro as an VP and CTO. For those of you who aren't aware, that EZPro is an exclusive distributor of many world-leading brands in China, Hong Kong, and Macau. And right now, most of my efforts are focused towards developing networked audiovisual applications. So I'm kind of managing the teams that is including the technical support, design, and installations. Thank you.
And Mradul, if we could have you introduce yourself next.
Yeah, thanks, Pereira. Hello, everyone. I am Mradul. I'm the MD and the principal at 3CDN. It's an independent design and consulting firm based out of India, focuses on these projects. I'm extremely happy to be here today. Thank you.
And lastly, we've got Jayme.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having us. My name is Jayme. So I'm working in Shure as a market development manager, basically looking after the Southeast Asia markets for the systems and professional audio portfolio.
And I am Herrera bin Sohail. I'm the editor for Inavate APAC, and I will be your moderator for today. I'm going to start with a pet peeve of mine. The word convergence, right? It's kind of like a buzzword. We hear about the convergence of AV and IT, the convergence of AV and IP, right? And I personally feel that the word convergence should not be part of the discussion now. The word should be converged, because AV and IT has already come together, right? There's no denying it. I want to kind of get our panel's opinions on what impact these converged technology systems have had on your business, on how you deliver value for your clients.
So I'll take this first, if you allow, Herrera. Right, so we carry a perception about AV, IT integration or convergence, which is moving across different layers of the OSI model. Most technologies today focus on the lower three layers, which are physical, data link, and network. Moving forward, convergence is going to evolve to the upper half, which is application layer, where software and API level integration will bring significant transformations for our industry. If you look at some of the certifications that have happened for AV products by conferencing platforms such as Teams and Zoom, it's one of such instances where an audio peripheral is not only recognized as a approved device by the platform, but it also gives features like mute sync, AAC offload, acknowledging that the AV device has more juice while processing critical functions like echo cancellation. So at the start, when AV and IT were getting together, and that's again on the bottom three layers, our challenges were common to others, where cross-disciplinary collaboration, especially with IT team, was something that took time. Documentation from OEMs did not satiate the needs of clients' IT team. They did not have enough information to kind of put those boxes into the network. As it stands today, we as consultants have adopted a design approach, which we refer to as IT first strategy, where we ask a fundamental question on how our AV system designs will respond to clients' production network and associated compliances. So we believe that there is a lot more to happen on the AV-IT convergence. And as I told you, we just hit the 3 steps we have a few more steps to climb.
And Kane, you obviously have a long career in the AV industry across many different job roles and designations. Maybe you could shed some light as well on how you've seen your role and the services that you provide to your clients change now that we have these converged systems.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say, it's been very, very long time. The first really networked system, it was like the year of 2008. I was in Vancouver. I was still working for one of the system integrators in Canada, and I was lucky to get involved with that project. It's Vancouver Convention Center. That was the first project that I got involved. That we cannot build up our own system. We cannot build up our own network. We have to use what is called converged network. And I started to realizing that how important to learn the IT terminologies, because very embarrassing is that during that project, at very beginning, I couldn't even understand the language that IT guys were talking to us, were asking for us. They're IT guys, we have to use their infrastructure, but it's very embarrassing. Very embarrassing is that we ask them questions, they don't understand us, and they ask us questions, we don't understand them. So from that time, I started to look really deeply into the network range. I totally agree with what Mr. Mradul, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name properly, but I totally agree with you. Network is a really I would say complicated, right? We start learning from the physical layer. I'm not sure if you guys still remember, Magenta was the first generation of a networked video, but it's really just used network cable to link up A to B, that's point to point. And later on, people realize that we can use Ethernet. We have to learn how to connect the things on the LAN, the local network. But now we need to bring them up to the layer 3, and then we have to send them over for a wide range of network, right? And even now, and we come up with lots of standard. I know people now not just working on the Dante or AVB, and people also looking at SMPTE 2110, right? That's the new standard. And I'm pretty sure later on, as what Mradul just mentioned, that we really need to focus on applications. Network should be a kind of like a backbone black boxes with the technology moving, and in the future, a network should just serve AV more. I would say is more compatible way, and people really shouldn't take too much attention. But this stage, and people have to learn a lot of stuff. Let's put it the other way. 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure that most people don't know how to set up a local network for their own family. But now, even my mom, she knows how to, just plug the router on, and she started using her cell phone to suffer the internet. She doesn't have to learn anything, and just plug in and play. But at this stage, we still got a lot of things to figure out. Even Dante, it is a plug in and play, but people have to learn a lot of stuff and make sure a very complicated project can go on well. It's still need people to learn.
And Jayme, perhaps you could give us the manufacturer's perspective.
Yeah, yep. Sorry, just as a background, I actually started my education side of things in Cisco, so CCNA. So I started programming routers and building firewalls and access points. So that was kind of typing in codes and things like to program stuff. So, and having that development of the whole convergence in this, I would never have imagined having a microphone actually. Having a web GUI to actually configure microphone would be actually something in the future that is currently what's happening. So that's very interesting kind of move that I saw from kind of normal methods of programming something into what we have now today, right? So that was really interesting. So, I mean, as a manufacturer, we certainly have rode that wave between this convergence. So the key is to understand what the IT world wants and kind of still maintain that audio-visual standards in this IT converged products. So the whole idea is to actually make it easy so that both worlds actually can understand each other well, like what Kane mentioned. So in light of that, as a hardware manufacturer, most of the time we have been kind of more basebands, as mentioned, connection to connection as such. So with this, we've recently actually kind of evolved as well and introduced our software DSPs that can actually kind of marry all the baseband stuff with the IT network protocols in terms of the different layers as mentioned by you guys. Right, so basically the aim ultimately is to simplify having great audio in systems, as well as to reduce the whole complexity for the IT administrators and as well as the whole traditional AV integrators, so that they can also be elevated into this world through intuitive softwares and hardware. And overall, in terms of the messaging, in terms of marketing messaging as well, we have also started to scale towards more towards the IT professionals in terms of their channels that they actually look into with our campaign, such as making connections effortless. So that is kind of a subtle theme to kind of reduce complexity, in addition to, of course, the AV professionals. So as you can see, all of this is actually how we're actually kind of moving towards that wave, as well as to also ride it continuously. Yeah.
There's something very interesting that Kane mentioned that I kind of want to delve down into. You shared this anecdote about, you know, the first time you had to talk to an IT department or an IT professional, and you didn't know what words to even use at that time.
Yep.
I feel that that might be in the past for you, but I feel that for a lot of AV professionals, that's their current situation. They're going into these meetings and they're meeting with these IT professionals, and they just don't know how to communicate. Both of them it's like speaking two different languages. What have you guys done to, number one, speak IT's language so that we can communicate? And maybe from your experiences, our attendees can also draw some parallels or get a little bit of advice on how to move down this route of speaking to a CIO, speaking to an IT department and getting their message across.
Am I the first one? All right. So, first of all, I think it's currently in my company, I'm doing a lot of trainings. First of all, I think we need to change the mindset. We need to understand the differences between AV world and the networked world. You know, when we talk about AV, everyone understand what we call it, the signal chain. We always think from left hand is signal inputs, and our outputs always on the right hand side. And we always think where that signal would be stopped. Yeah, that's our mindset, okay? But when we talk about a network, it's kind of like spread it all over the world. There's no left side and right side. Each cable, you have incoming signal and outgoing signals. Each cable is dual direction, right? When you draw a topology and you can from left to right, you can from central to outsiders, you can from up to the bottom. So there's no certain rule for you to draw a network topology. And also the very interesting things that I keep telling people, when you learn network, what would be the biggest, barrier? You often say a word, the terminology that you don't understand. Then you kind of search that on the internet and you open up the definition and you realize that they use more than 20 terms that you don't understand at all to explain the terms you're looking for, you're searching for. You know, each time when you read the network articles, it's always coming with lots of strange words. So you just have to, there's no way around. You have to just remember that when you read a very large amount of articles, you start realizing how to use those terms properly, because network, they often use, let me put it this way. When you learn AV, you got steps. Like, you know how to start with, like from the beginner and then go upper, right? You upper level, go upper level. You know that progress way to learn stuff. You read a book, you're from the first page to the end page, and you can kind of find that sequence. But for network, it's kind of like here or there. Today you want to learn something, you read an article, but some of them you don't understand. Don't worry about it, right? You just keep learning. When you learn 2 years and you look back, you realize that, hey, now I read this article, I can understand a lot more than the 2 years ago. So that's the way I ask people that you learn network, and then you have to change your mindset. It's totally different than learning the AV stuff. It's totally different stuff. That's my understanding.
And Mradul, you mentioned previously that you've got an IT first approach, right? How does that kind of gel with the fact that you're still deploying AV systems, you're designing them, you're trying to kind of mesh the two, right? AV is on the IT network, but IT doesn't really properly understand it. So how do you start translating AV into terms that IT can digest?
Yeah, so the story here is you have two different classes of skills that are available in the AV industry. One where folks like Kane and I mean, we are like 12, 15 years in the industry, and we carry a certain amount of baggage with us, which is the AV design. So we had to unlearn a lot of pieces to learn IT, approach system design, as Kane spoke about, that it can't be an input-output driven approach. It has to be a much wider network-based approach. So that was the first part. The second part is what we are seeing with the young folks joining us. They are able to adopt and adapt to the network designs much faster than we could. And they've been really good for us. Now, from the end customer point of view, when we talk to them, one of the key stakeholders from customer side is the CIO. And as you know, the role of a CIO is to ensure technology, systems, and procedures lead to outcomes in line with business goals. And when we talk to them about IT designs around AV systems, they are more concerned about the impact on the business and the outcomes around it. And they look at us as a key partner, mainly because of the fact that AV has become extremely critical from the workflow point of view. They continue to be risk averse, and InfoSec compliance is one of the many hurdles that we are required to counter in today's era. We are expected to tell them that the box that we are recommending as part of a design is 802.1x ready. It can sit into a LDAP or an Active Directory ecosystem, so on and so forth. But long story short, we are expected to speak IT language today. As I told you, two classes. One, folks like me and hopefully Kane, where we went on to unlearn something to learn the new IT skills, and the young bunch of colleagues that I carry in my office who are really, really top of their game in terms of talking those lingos that the IT staff from client side are able to understand a better way.
And Jayme, you kind of touched a little bit on your background in IT, and you mentioned certification. And from my personal understanding is that the IT world is really based on certifications and standards, right? They already it's almost like they already have a fully developed language that they speak and they understand. Is that something that Shure is looking to incorporate into its products, so that when professionals like Mradul and Kane and other system integrators and consultants go to a client, they already have a product which speaks IT?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, certifications is definitely a strong push within the IT industry, and includes security as well. So we actually do extensive certification programs with Microsoft, with Zoom, etc., to make sure our products actually are certified to work in these environments. And of course, next thing to look at is actually how well the secure the transmissions between these devices. So we do also add in what we call the Shure audio encryption as well between devices to ensure that meetings are secured. So like all these IT professionals, when they hear secure, is this kind of digitally signed, for example, oh yeah, you are Microsoft certified. It's just basically check boxes for them, and straight away they are immediately kind of halfway into that, into the product, I guess. Of course, the other things is actually to kind of maintain the whole ecosystem of things amongst all the other certifications as well. Yeah.
And Mradul and Kane, maybe you can touch upon the fact that whether or not is it really beneficial for you to kind of go to someone with a product that's already team certified, that already has like AES 1 to 8-bit security and encryption and things like that? Is that helping you progress the conversation further with these IT professionals?
Oh yes, no doubt, no doubt. I'm glad that Jayme just mentioned environment. We all know that basic network is just solve the communication issues, right? But the certification is for you have to prove your products can get along with somebody else's product. You know, there's no one can make one product that can solve all kinds of problems. So as you see, a lot of things work is based on the Windows. A lot of things based on Mac. I know, H, you are a big fan of Mac, so that's environment, right? In our industry, you have to understand the platform. You know, the platform. Like we either use x86 platforms for DSPs, or we use Windows platform for all kinds of application softwares because people used to, right? So the certification at least proves that I don't have to worry about the compatibility issues. You know, once Shure is certified, let's say Zoom, and we know Shure, I know you guys got an IntelliMix, right? That kind of like a NUC. You got a software built in. Is really well served for the huddle rooms. But if you got a certification, great. You know, I don't have to worry about to test all kinds of very complicated scenarios because you have already done that in your lab. I think that's very, very essential for me. If I choose a product, my first choice to have some products being certified can get along with other products.
Right. And just to add to what Kane just spoke about, it helps us position products in a better way, in an easier way in front of the client. When we tell them that the microphone that we're recommending to you is certified by Teams or Zoom, so the discussion kind of ends there itself. It's good to come into the design. It's good to be part of the bill of quantity. And what I told earlier, right? I mean, you don't want to have a scenario where you end up recommending a product and you hook on to a certain conferencing platform, and the conferencing platform rejects that device or a peripheral that we don't recognize, we don't support this device. That's going to be a nightmare. So a certification basically gives predictability about performance, about outcome, around the entire situation. And as I spoke about earlier, the handshake around certification is much wider. Mute sync is something that we love seeing. When I mute on a Zoom application, the microphone in the ceiling also turns the LED to red. The offloading of echo cancellation is something I spoke about earlier. So fundamentally, it's a environment or an ecosystem where the resources are properly being managed by means of having proper certification around it.
Yeah, sorry, just like to add to that, yeah, in terms of the certification and testing program that we do with Zoom and other manufacturers as well, we do certify that it's kind of the mute sync that you mentioned as well. These are actually extensively tested, and it's actually kind of pre-tested in advance before all firmware are released. Yeah, so these are key features that we work towards to constantly.
Well, actually, I really want to add something. 10 years ago, I think actually we had this conversation before. 10 years ago, people are aiming to a good brand. Good brand is people when they try to purchase something, they always look at whether that's a good brand. Like SM58, that's very traditional, very classic microphone. So people knew that's great product. They're gonna buy it. But now, the system becomes way more complicated than 10 years ago. Like people has different demanding, has different requirements. Instead of buying a good product, everyone looking for a solution. With, solution means many products combined together. How we can to prove they can get along, they can work along. I think certification is very key thing, which means each manufacturer or all of them has a spending time and put all their products together in the lab, spending time and make sure they're all compatible, right? Work along.
Thank you for sharing, guys. I kind of want to take the conversation into a related path, which is the divide between digital and analog, right? We're humans, we receive and send signals in analog, right? Everyone can agree on that. And I see the conversation is always focused on digital because that's what IT does, right? IT does not do analog, IT does digital. And it's almost like we're in a rush to show that, hey, we can do digital as the AV community, but we seem to forget that the analog part is also core to what we do. We are audio and video, and there are parts of analog that cannot be digitized just by the very definition. We will still require hardware that needs to be present in room. How are you guys communicating this to the IT department, people who've just never had to deal with analog before in their lives? Kane, maybe you could start.
Yeah, well, let's take an example. Let's say, what would be most important part for a system to serve a singer? Like when singer sings, what would be the most important part? I personally think is microphone right after the mic. Of course, you have to have a very good microphone, but in order to have a very good quality of sound, and then you require a preamp, and that preamp is analog. Okay, you cannot in charge of the whole system because the singer walk on the stage, but they cannot control the system. The system controlled by the system engineer. There's nothing they can do. But each singer has their own private microphones and the preamp. The preamp is analog. So very important part of the system, right? But when we talk to IT people, that's very it's been I've been struggling. I just mentioned that when they talk about IT languages like a decade ago, and I wasn't able to understand them. But when I talk about an AV signal chain, they don't understand either. When I talk about a sound, and it sounds like a mystery for people. How come you say this sound is really good, or that sound is really bad? What would be your standard? Was your judgment? I think people gotta perceive. Each people perceive slightly different. So it combines with the psychology standard, and of course we have sort of objective standard, but it's kind of like a mix. That's why the analog sometimes in AV market, you can also treat it as art, either as audio or as a video. Even the video, what kind of screen looks better or looks more warm or looks more cool, depending on what kind of application you're going to use, right? Your computer displays is totally different than the LED displays you use it in the movie theater. They're totally different color balance. So I think those parts are art. People need to understand the psychology part. So that's analog. So IT, maybe I'm wrong, but it's been more than 10 years. I didn't see IT people like to move towards this direction. So I always encourage the people in AV world try to learn network, I think is probably a better approach. I'm not sure what you guys think about, but that's my personal take, in the past 10 years.
Mradul, is IT going to learn AV by itself, or do you think AV is going to have to teach IT what AV does?
I mean, IT usually is our end customer. Asking them to do something is always a challenge. But, but having said that, from the analog discussion point of view, we always relate analog to the environment in which technology gets installed. We have strongly advocated the importance of the environment in which technology gets installed, whether it is acoustics leading to excellent speech intelligibility, appropriate lighting conditions, which are required to guarantee a certain user experience. So the physics around how we see and hear things will remain the same. And regardless of the advancements in the digital space, where we're getting more and more plug-and-play products, OEMs encourage partners to install these products without having to worry about most of the aspects in terms of room coordination. But the right experience, in our opinion, is when the analog piece, which is the environment, gels well with the digital products which are coming out in the market. So you can't ignore the environment at all.
And Jayme, Shure kind of finds itself at a very nice position between the digital and the analog. Perhaps you could share a little bit about how you guys tackle this problem of bridging these two disparate things.
Yeah, so I think the analog kind of systems are also important as well, as most processors are actually manually triggered or captured, especially when it comes to the quality of voice, as Kane mentioned. So be it digital or analog, most of the time is basically transparent to the user, and the reliability of the product or the equipment is actually one of the more important factors, as well as the added security and control features when it comes to digital interface analog products. So which provides a key unique factor when it comes to the choice of technology, as well as the product to incorporate into the AV world, in an IT install as well. So in terms of the kind of analog side of things, or the analog interface of microphones and DSPs, we're basically building upon 95 years of professional audio experience and bringing them into your conference products, into your home products. And it gives you really an added edge when it comes to the reliability and audio quality in terms of the analog side of things. So on top of that, having a digital system or platform that you can interface analog products from the same manufacturer side of things actually provides an added compatibility matrix that actually kind of saves any potential interfacing issues like what Kane and Mradul actually mentioned earlier.
And just to kind of round out this conversation, it's almost like, when people talk about AV over IP, they think that it means the death of traditional AV. Now, I personally don't believe that's true. I believe that traditional AV still has a place, and I believe AV over IP has a place. It's almost like two different tools for two different problems. I'd like to maybe gauge your opinions on the matter as well. And also maybe if you could share a little bit of your thought process about how, when you decide to choose, how do you decide to choose? Which route do you think you should go down? What are some of the key factors which, if you see them, you're like, oh, I should go down traditional, or I should go down AV over IP. Mradul, if you could start.
Well, the traditional design edge is going to be HDBT, right? If we talk about in the video perspective, which in my opinion is also digital to a great extent. But the choice of AV or IP gives you so much flexibility, so much modularity in terms of the way you design the systems. I'll give you a classic example. We were sitting with a client during the need analysis stage. They told us that, hey, we need 10 inputs, 6 outputs, and we should be okay. That's the inputs and output configuration that we can talk about. We went back to them with an updated deck, updated budget, and they told us that, guess what? We realized that we may end up having 24 inputs, and the outputs may turn out to be around 12 or 15. And guess what? This number may change in future. And if you go with that mindset of having a chassis in which you can slot in cards and support the IO requirement the client has for matrixing the inputs to the outputs, you'd always fall short. And that's where AV or IP came in really handy to us, which gave us scalability, modularity to meet client's requirement, which was waiting over a period of time. So AV or IP, with the performance that we are achieving on AV or IP today, with most of the OEMs, it is comparable to what would happen otherwise with HDBT. And moving forward, I believe more and more designs will turn into AV or IP based designs. More importantly, again, my context has always been the enterprise space. What these network products do is not only they give you scalability and ease of installation, so on and so forth. You would notice these are really small form factor devices. These boxes can sit under the table, they can go behind the screen or above the ceiling in the plenum. And that kind of reduces a lot of coordination effort that goes in with the interior designers. We don't need a dedicated rack space inside the room. You can either have a centralized distribution or create an in-room phenomena where behind the screen, all the magic can happen for you. So to answer you, it kind of appears to be all digital. The moment HDBT came from Valence, and now we have different forms of AV or IP, just that AV or IP gives you more scalability, modularity in terms of design approach.
Kane, your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I think from my person point of view, that people cannot always think manufacturers are making networked products just in order to make more money. I totally disagree with that. I used to work for manufacturer, okay? The one reason for manufacturer to go towards the networked solution is because they're trying to bring the cost down. That's the only reason, okay? Networked solution, as you can see, very easy to design, okay? Very easy for the installation, very flexible and very scalable, right? You can start with the two devices, just link them together with one single Cat5 cable, and you can enlarge that system up to 1,000 cables, 1,000 devices. That's the very powerful thing that only networked solution can have. When you go back to the analog time, it's really hard for you to build up a huge system. As you guys are aware that a lot of clients now asking for a lot of good features. How you're gonna how you can achieve those good features? When you design that, do you really have to, to understand all this very minor features? Right now, I think, let's say the consulting companies, and most people can start off their job very easily. Maybe they can be trained for 1 or 2 years. Manufacturers trying to make the product very easy use, less training required, right? But back to the analog world, if you talk to those people from a consultant company, they're all very knowledgeable. You can't just allow one guy, beginners, to start design a system with only a couple of years experience. It wouldn't happen at all. But now it's very easy. People just learn the connections, and then they leave the rest of the job to the programmer. And that's why I always call those people as integrators, called system integrators. I'm not mentioning to those system integrator companies. I'm talking about the person itself. If you look at the world, a lot of freelancers, I know a lot of freelancers, they're great programmers. There are DSP programmers, there are distributed video system programmers, there are third-party programmers. They are the ones who actually made the system work, not the device themselves, okay? For the designers, it's basically just link up all the devices with the star topology, everything plug into one switch, their job is done. That's the differences. I would like to divide our industry in different catalog. If you like art, and then you can go just study how sound, amuse people, how sound make people feel comfortable. That's more like art part. If you try to learn technology, well, you got no way around. You can't just say, hey, I stick with the analog devices. I don't think that is possible, right? If you really fan people, you want to make a fan, okay, not for a living. If you are, you know, really hard worker, you want to make money, you got no choice. You have to learn network. You cannot find a way around anymore. If you just only want to make a fan, of course, you can still buy those tube devices. You can still get the perfect sound. There is nothing wrong with that. So all in all, I still encourage people to learn more network knowledge. Actually, with the development of technology, I still think the network for AV is still improving. So we need to learn less and less, you know, like either, you know, I'm the trainer of the, Dante in China. But basically we just need to train them half days, as most people understand how can link up the device together, set up a small network, simple network. You know, they can get the system up and run. Is achievable. So network bring the cost down. And we can easily integrate the system, the equipment together. I think a lot of benefits. You know, I'm standing on the network side.
And Jayme, obviously, Shure has a wide range of products that cover both of these sectors. Well, what do you think is going to be a happy medium? And maybe you can share some of Shure's plans on how it sees its roadmap for product development.
Yeah, so we obviously have both the analog and digital kind of products as well. So I think to kind of move into that digital world, or rather the network world, is something that we have to kind of look at the environment that we're in currently. So we are in kind of an environment, in a connected world where everything needs to be fast and kind of fluid. So if you look at huddle room now, or kind of multi-purpose spaces, they need to be reconfigured in a split second. So that's where kind of the digital side of things actually plays a very important role in terms of managing the end users' expectations, and also to make it easy for those administering the systems to actually understand how it flows with a click of a button. Of course, the analog side of things, as mentioned, was more of those input devices where you capture voices and input data, etc. So I think having this both actually work cohesively together is actually a very important part where we need to manage well. And of course, the manpower issue, as Kane mentioned nowadays, the programmers, the designers are actually the one actually making AV system work, less so more than the AV engineers themselves. So having this specialized pool of people actually connecting the dots, virtual dots, is actually something that we have to look into in terms of training these people up to meet that level of expectations, and also troubleshooting these setups as well is something we have to kind of look closely into to kind of ensure that the whole setup actually works well between the analog and digital world. And so this kind of makes things a little bit complex on the back end side of things. Of course, the whole massive capacity of a Cat5 cable or fiber cable now is really a very much added point in the digital world. So traditionally, if you look at old patch bays, you have to memorize which patch holes go to which kind of source and input. So that all has been changed with the introduction of matrices, with the introduction of the digital world. So, but the now key question is, how do we actually make this easy for everyone, I would say, even from IT engineer to the AV engineer. So I guess that's where we're coming more towards, to kind of make it more effortless, optimize the system for you if you kind of work towards that environment or the ecosystem. So at a click of a button, I can just patch everything easily without actually to memorize, okay, or recall settings, etc., etc. Yeah. So I think this is kind of the important thing that we kind of need to move towards, or head towards in the future.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for the conversation and the discussion and your thoughts. I can see from the amount of questions we've received that our audience feels like there are places that we can expand on. So we will be running through the questions that have been posed. Apologies in advance if we can't really get to all of them due to the time constraint. But the first one I want to touch on, and I just want your quick fire thoughts and responses on them. This is asked anonymously. standardized hardware and software differentiation. Is this the way forward for the AV industry in a converged world? Kane, if you would like to take it.
Let's look at how IT make a great success. I think people would agree that IT IT industry has made a great success in the past, I would say 40 years. Okay, so I think back to the 1970s. I remember I was, I forgot his name. He actually raised up the first solution for the networks, Ethernet network. Okay, so 1982, so Ethernet becomes a winner. It's kind of win from other network solutions. But now from 10 gigabit network until now, it's 10 gig network is very normal. You can easily find it in the market. Okay, it's not very expensive device anymore. It's only you spend 30 to 40 years. It's very, very quick. But when you look at AV network, we can think about it for so many manufacturers. How many times those manufacturers talk to each other, and how many times those manufacturers get together making a rules or a standard, right? Do we have any standard in the past? Not too much. Video part, yes, probably they're making a lot of standard because they got no choice, right? They have to use the standard to build up the device. But for the audio device, pretty much they work on their own. I think that's one of the reasons that for even now, for the most of audio products, they're not standardized until everyone moves into the digital world. We need to make a standard for the DBFS so people can follow up the gain structure, that kind of stuff. It's only 10 years or so, it's not long ago. But it really helps the industry to understand because not each one of people has a very good sensitive ear, and we sometimes have to understand the standard and follow up the stage, or try to get the whole system up and running. I think standardize the products is gonna greatly help the industry. Let's say a very simple rule is that when we send the signal into the input side, and we are expecting to say a 0 dB at the input side, and then we send the 0 dB out, we call it unity gain, right? Where did that come from? Standard. That's part of standard. If everyone using dBu, and we mark the 0 dBu at the input side, and we're sending out the 0 dBu signal to the next level of device, that's part of standard. And then everyone on the same page. But if you look at now, still not completely follow up the standard. I think those manufacturers still need to be talking together, but it's definitely, for me, I think that's definitely a trend.
Another question, this one I'm kind of combining two. Mradul, you mentioned layer 3. We have in the chat the mention of new protocols such as AVNU and the Milan protocol. What do you think should be the thrust for the AV industry when it comes to protocols, and what are the benefits of going to level 3? Because from my understanding, true layer 3 is still not available as an audio protocol for integrators and consultants.
So layer 3 will represent TCP/IP, and most of the products would be looking at layer 3 in terms of their design. Just to kind of combine this note with what Kane was talking about, we continue to have proprietary platforms or protocols on which most of the OEMs sit, and they try to interoperate. The fact that AV is going towards a stage where it is becoming critical, it is becoming part of the workflow, it is going for massive scale of installs, we are going to need standardization. And from the quick adoption point of view, layer 3 makes more sense because you don't have to worry about the hardware, which is going to support the legacy networks, are also going to support and satiate the need for installation. But point remains that we will need a standardized approach towards AV, mainly from the protocols, platforms, and technology point of view, so that not only do we achieve interoperability, but we're also able to have a larger scale of installation happening going forward.
Another question from Mradul from chat. It's from Sujit Shivaram, who is from ESCO Singapore. Thank you for the question. He asks, how should integrators gear up to deliver this convergence, and what would you typically look for in a bid submission from an integrator to kind of gauge their competency when it comes to delivering systems that require a high level of converged AV and IT?
Yes, one of the biggest yardsticks for us is to look for partners who have certifications, critical certifications with them, not only from the OEMs, but also hopefully from the platform providers. I'll give you a classic example. We released an RFP last year, and this was around Zoom as a platform, with the client having his workflow around Zoom completely. And during the conversation, we spoke about a possibility of having both the screen providing interactivity. And back then, when the RFP came out, Zoom used to support only one screen. One of the participants came up and said that, guess what? Not only are we Zoom certified, we also follow Zoomtopia closely, the yearly event that Zoom conducts. And during Zoomtopia 2018, Zoom has already announced support for 2 screens for interactivity point of view. So point here is, one is certification, the other is the drive of the company towards tools and platforms that they are going to support as part of their installation, and be ready with thoughts around it. So the biggest yardstick to Sujit is please be certified on conferencing platforms and products which are certified by the conferencing platform. That just gives us enough headway to kind of shortlist partners to that regard.
A question from Subhash B. Kind of off topic, but we'll take it because it's an interesting topic to explore. Any changes that you guys see in designing workspaces post-COVID-19? We'll start with Kane, and then Mradul, and then Jayme.
Well, honestly, I don't think I've seen any changes in designing workspaces, but you have to see the directions where the market has been impacted in different degree. Let's say for the tourism, for the shows, they pretty much most of them has been stopped. In most of the countries you do not allowed to host the big shows anymore. For the tourism, well, I would say for the most countries, they don't encourage people to go for a tour at this moment. And also the theaters, the huge part of the convention centers probably slowing down. It's not that urgent if the project is not that urgent. But however, for the conference market, it's start growing up because of this pandemic, this COVID-19. I think people start thinking, why can't we work from home? Some people probably like this way, they like. For myself, I understand that working at home is not as nicely as working in the office, where you can see your colleagues, you got a better way to communicate with people, probably more efficiency in terms of that very close touch, but however, previously, before this COVID-19, if clients ask me to give a seminar, and I got no choice, I have to fly over. I can't just say, no, I'm not going. I have to go there and meet people in person. And for any 2 hours or even 4 hours meeting, and I have to spend a day going and spend another day to come back. And that's 3 days. But right now, in this case, I got involved with more webinars because people can just simply invite me. It's very easy, you know. If H asked me to go to Singapore for this meeting, I probably have to have to think about it, whether I can, you know, make that time or not. But for this webinar, you can ask me anytime. Most likely I can find the time and join this conversation, you know. So it does change people. Again, that's kind of mindset thing. Like I'm managing my team. I'm staying in Hong Kong. Since this pandemic, I've been staying in Hong Kong. I didn't go anywhere. But my team is most of my team is in Shenzhen. Some of them are in Beijing, Shanghai. So I have to remotely working with them. That's whole side of the method. I have to find a way to understand what they're doing and communicate with them more in a more appropriate ways. You know, I think that's just a working method. Yeah, that's just my share.
Mradul?
Yeah, so one of the key takeaways because of the current pandemic is to have contactless tech going into offices. It was only recently that we started having designs where we used to talk about one-touch start to the AV system, where you just go into the room, the user interface has your meeting populated, you just touch and you are good to go. The turnaround is faster. And now we are made to look at options and solutions where the one-touch becomes a zero-touch. So how do we have a zero-touch start to the meeting? And the zero-touch interaction with the AV system goes back to our first discussion, which is application layer based integration, where API software will make that thing happen for you. It's akin to bringing your own control. It's a BYOC world now, where the user interface that you have with you has the advanced controls that you're looking for. Some of the customers are talking about integration with Amazon's Alexa. I don't think that would be possible in the enterprise space, given privacy-related challenges and the fact that the content always goes back to the internet. But zero-touch interaction will be the way forward. And there are ways and means that we can achieve. We have to look at achieving zero-touch interaction in 3 different phases. In the immediate future, where there are certain products which you can use. In the near future, where we'll have to kind of innovate on the software side. And once folks like Teams and Zoom give you the APIs, then the long-term future will kind of mean that your presence in the room initiates the meeting to happen for you. So that will be the post-COVID-19 era from the AV point of view.
Mm-hmm. And Jayme, from the manufacturer's perspective, do you see maybe demand for new kinds of products, new kinds of solutions, new kinds of systems in a post-COVID-19 world?
Yeah, so previously, I guess most of the kind of end users are already kind of moving to smaller room setups. So, and I guess now instead of big boardrooms where you can sit 30, 20 people, for example, they're kind of moving away from those and making it a bit more modular. And of course, smaller rooms are becoming more demand, and as well, they are asking for it to be better equipped. So in such kind of smaller scale systems and better, easier operating systems in these rooms are actually kind of a move towards that direction, as well as mobile systems as well, where you kind of want to move your meetings kind of in a mobile manner in terms of separating people in different rooms, but still kind of use the same system. So this is some of the kind of key kind of requests that we are getting at. As well as, yeah, you mentioned very well in terms of the no-touch kind of system where you move in and you can start a meeting immediately without having to do a kind of a mic check, holding something up, speaking into a microphone. So recently, a lot of kind of education setups, especially where, you know, the teachers, educators are all kind of moving in kind of face shield and mask technology, for example. They do not want to actually hold something with them, which is being shared. You know, so having a system where it's there, where you move in and you can actually be more or less touch-free to pick up audio, etc., or voice is a very much kind of key shift that we see nowadays, actually.
And we have one final question that we have time for. Apologies to everyone who we couldn't get to, but the question is from Pralada Rangaraj. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. And the question is, what does the convergence of AV and ICT mean for the IT department of any organization? I will be answering this myself. We're going to have a second webinar next week. We will actually have an IT consultant and a professional services provider. So if you want this question answered by people from the IT industry, you can join us same time next week on a Thursday. We will have a new panel for you, and hopefully we can answer this question at that point in time. With that, I'd like to thank Kane, Mradul, and Jayme so much for devoting your time, your thoughts, your experiences, and sharing them with our audience. To our audience, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you can join us next week as well. Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. See you.